Now, here's George Roberts.
Joining me now is author Howard Frank, and Howard has written a book called Lying in Wait, Anatomy of a Domestic Terrorist. Now this book happens to be about Eric Frein of Canadensis. If you don't know who we're talking about, I'll give you a little bit of a background. Back on September 12th of 2014, Eric ambushed the Pennsylvania State Police Barracks at Blooming Grove in Pike County, killing Corporal Brian Dixon and injuring Trooper Alex Douglas. And then a 48-day manhunt ensued through both Pike and Monroe counties before he was captured. So that's the background. Howard, you are a former newspaper reporter. Why did you decide to follow this case so closely and write a book?
Well, there was a genesis to it. I had just finished my previous book, which was another true crime book. And no sooner had I finished it than my editor suggested this. And I said, nah, that was a long trial. That's too much work. Because I was exhausted.
Sure.
And I had to promote my other book. And the more I researched it, the more I found it was an interesting story. And people had a lot of questions about it. It hadn't been written about, so I decided to write about it.
You know, there's a lot of interesting things in the book. The details, how did you go about researching it? What are all the different things you did to research this?
Well, I did a lot of interviews. I went up there, walked around, wasn't too warmly welcomed, I have to say. Reached out to the state police, spoke to some professionals in law enforcement and in first response, looked at old AP news articles that were provided to me, and just gathered as much information as I could from published and non-published sources.
Why did people want you poking around and asking about this?
I think they had a bad taste in their mouth from the experience. It was a tough time in the community. At the beginning, everyone wanted them to get him.
Right.
Let's capture this guy. But after about a week of that, they got tired of the roadblocks and the what they perceived as an invasion of their civil liberties. And got tired of having their car searched and their licenses inspected and having guns pointed at them.
They just wanted this over with.
Yeah, they wanted them to catch the guy.
Sure, I could see that. Did you sit in on any of the trial in Pike County?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
And what did you observe when you were there? I mean, was it a tense trial?
It was tense, and for everyone but the suspect. He was very relaxed and I would say ambivalent.
Wow.
He didn't show any expression or reactions at all to any of the testimony.
Let's talk about the case. You said that Eric had an obsession with military reenactment, that he had listened to his father talk about his disdain for police and believed that he could start a revolution with this one act. Anything else you can add to that?
Well, his father was a strong anti-government person. He did not like the U.S. government. He served during the Vietnam era, but he served in Europe as a major in the Army. And he had a facade of being a Vietnam War hero. So he indoctrinated his son not only into hating the government, which a lot of people did in those days, in the Vietnam War days, but also as a Vietnam War hero, which raised the bar for Eric and made Eric want to be known as a hero,
But
as
his
a
dad
leader.
was not a Vietnam War.
No, it was
hero.
stolen valor.
Wow.
It was pure stolen valor.
And that
which-
came out in the trial, right? I mean,
That only came out in the trial. I mean, the information I got is that Eric didn't know about that until the trial.
I wonder if there was any reaction to Eric hearing this for the first time.
I didn't notice, but he was very introverted and calm during the trial. So I doubt it. I really doubt it. But inside, he must have been crushed.
You hit on a few things about the ambush. He didn't see troopers as having families, being real people. Tell us more about that.
Well, he was targeting authority. He wanted to start a revolution against the government, and he thought that his acts would spark discontent and a revolution. That's what he believed in his head.
Do you know why he targeted the Blooming Grove barracks?
I don't know why, but I can speculate. It's in the woods, and there is a place for a sniper to bury himself not far from the front door and with clear line of sight from the front door.
Let's talk about the shots he took. The first shot, he saw Corporal Brian Dixon, and he shot at him. And then he waited 90 seconds. And you mentioned this a few times in the book. He waited a minute and a half before he fired another shot. What's the significance of that, do you think?
Well, determination. He wanted to take out the symbols of the government. And 90 seconds is an eternity when you think about the event that it caused. When he hit Brian Dixon, the corporal, he went right down. He was gone before he hit the ground. And 90 seconds is a long time to wait in a place that is teeming with police, and you'd be afraid of it being captured.
Sure.
So I think he was just very determined to make his mark.
If there were more troopers there at that moment, do you think he would have shot or tried to shoot more of them?
Yes, I do.
That was his...
I do. He even commented in his notes that he took meticulously during his escape, how he had one in sight and could have taken him out, but decided not to because he didn't want to be captured.
Do you think he thought that he would be on the run? In other words, did he look at the fact that he would be able to shoot these troopers and then get away cleanly and never be heard from again?
I think when he was planning it, he believed that because he had a car.
Yeah.
But he quickly escaped in his car, an old Jeep, and he had the headlights off and crashed into a tree. When he crashed into a tree, it disabled the car. So he took what he could, left a plethora of evidence in the car, and fled on foot and went to his parents' house.
You know what I find interesting about that part of it is that he meticulously figured out this whole scenario, what he was going to do. He gets in the Jeep, turns the lights off. He's on 402. I would have thought that he would have known where he was driving, practiced this maybe a few times with lights off and things like that, and he wouldn't crash. You know, he would have known what he was doing, unless his adrenaline was just going so fast and he just was out of control.
Well, the adrenaline may explain it. You know, he had just done something that he only had done play acting in his war enactments, and the moment may have gotten to him. But also, those woods are pretty dark, and driving with your headlights out is probably not something he practiced.
I'm with author Howard Frank, and Howard has written this book, Lying in Wait, Anatomy of a Domestic Terrorist. We're talking about Eric Frein and the 48-day manhunt after he had shot the troopers and escaped into the woods. Let's talk a little bit about that and what transpired. As we all know, that the police descended upon the areas of Pike and Monroe County, and right there you have Barrett Township with Skytop and Canadensis. They knew that Eric lived in the Canadensis area. Maybe they were figuring he was going to work his way back to the house or something like that. But with all the officers there searching for Eric Frein, you had mentioned earlier that at first the community was behind the officers. Let's go get him, go get him. But then after a week or so of that, they grew tired of having the police around. Why was that?
Well, every time they went out for groceries, for milk, bread, their cars were searched. Their identifications were looked at, and they were treated as a police officer on duty would treat you with great seriousness. And from the police officers, from law enforcement's point of view, they were protecting the public, but from the public's point of view, it was a big hassle. And this is also We're both from the area. We know that this is a suburban/rural area,
Right.
and they are very protective of their rights. And they didn't like the intrusion of all these agencies. Don't forget, it wasn't just the state police, but it was the U.S. Marshal Service, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, the FBI. There was a huge mobilization of law enforcement on the search.
They were basically under martial law.
They were. That's a good way to explain it. People felt like their civil liberties with warrantless searches were happening, and they didn't take too kindly to that.
At first it was just the state police there, right, at the beginning.
Right.
And then the marshals came in and other organizations, and they brought all their tools and stuff. Was there a little conflict between the local police versus the federal agencies that came in?
I sensed that from talking off the record to some of these troopers, that they felt like this was their investigation and they didn't need these outsiders, quote unquote, to interfere with their investigation, that they could find their suspect. So there was a little friction, and there were differences in the way they operated. So the marshals and the FBI and the ATF had their own ways of operating. And it was a big coordination effort for the state police, who were in charge of the investigation. And they used a lot of high-tech equipment to search him out.
So it was high tech and low tech, because I remember you mentioned in the book about how they would, do the walk. You'd have all these troopers lined up, and they slowly have to walk through the woods. We know those woods are not the best conditions for walking, because there's swamps, there's all kinds of bushes and things that can scratch you and cut you up. But they had to walk through all that in a big line, meticulously searching for Eric. And
Right.
that was not easy.
No, not an easy chore. There were streams there, and Eric had prepared for eluding the police. So he knew also from his reenactments to use the streams to throw off the scents of the dogs.
Ah, okay.
So he used that strategically. But the police had what they called the blimp in the box, which came from Ohio, and that was an inflatable blimp that had infrared and visual cameras on it and looked for movement in the woods at night.
Yeah.
They would get a spotting and call out sighting or suspect, and mobilize, circle the area, only to find out there was a bear there.
Right.
So they had a lot of false sightings, and that created a lot of frustration.
Yeah. Let's talk about Eric, as he had prepared for the possibility of, I guess, being on the run, because he had things with him, to be able to eat and entertainment and stuff like that. Let's talk a little bit about what he had with him, and if he really thought he was going to be on the run that long.
Well, two separate questions there. First of all, he had his sniper rifle, which was an old Yugoslavian model, not a very good one, but a very expensive sight on it. And he had a handgun with him, a Glock, I believe it was, and a pocket knife. But he wasn't armed to fight a war, but police didn't know that, of course.
Right.
But there was no way that he could sustain himself with food. Police believe he left caches in the woods.
Oh, okay.
And they also believed, and I couldn't get anybody on record, but I got them without attribution telling me that the law enforcement believed that there were people locally that were helping him with either shelter or with food to elude police for so long.
Interesting.
As far as how long he thought he could get away, he was, as evidenced by his diary that he kept, he was shocked that he was able to elude police for so long. He was in total disbelief and almost mocking them in his diary that he was able to elude police for so long.
For anybody who didn't live through this, if you're anywhere in the Poconos, and especially in Barrack Township, that area there, it was a lockdown situation. Schools had been closed and things like that. It was not the best conditions for the people that were living there.
No, schools were locked down. They were closed for a while, and when they opened up, they were closed for recess. So kids, and little kids that didn't really understand all this, could not go out. In fact, they had to cancel in Barrack Township and the neighboring areas. They had to cancel Halloween that year, and that impacted kids.
Sure.
a
Troopers
lot.
would get on school buses too to check the school buses with the kids on them to see if Eric might be in the bus somewhere. Crazy stuff. But let's talk about the end of this then. 48 days later, Eric Frein was found at the Birchwood Pocono Air Park near Tannersville. Do you think that Eric was getting careless at that point, and that's why he got caught, or it was just luck happenstance on law enforcement that they came upon him?
Well, it wasn't luck, because they were doing grid searches, and this was the second time they searched that area. But I think Eric Frein was getting careless, and what he did was he was hanging out in the hangar, and he went into the woods to relieve himself. And while he was walking back unarmed, marshals spotted him, surrounded him, told him to put his hands up and get on the ground, and that's how they caught him. So I think Eric Frein was tired of living in the cold, living hungry, living on the run, under the tension. A part of him was probably glad that he was able to move on to this next section of his life, which he thought was martyrdom.
I'm with Howard Frank, author of Lying in Wait, Anatomy of a Domestic Terrorist. And this is all about Eric Frein, who had ambushed state police barracks at Blooming Grove in 2014. And Howard, you spent over a decade as a frontline reporter working with the Pocono Record. Why did you decide to write this? What brought you back into writing this kind of material, investigation?
Well, first of all, it was a national story, so that drew my interest. Nobody had written about it. Also, my interest is always the psychological interest. What motivated the person? What was going through his head? What were going through the heads of the people who were in the community, who had to live under these circumstances? So that was very important to me. And I thought that these troopers deserved to have their sacrifice honored by telling the story.
Yeah, I noticed in the book, it's not just one side all about Eric. It also talks about the troopers themselves, which is very interesting. You spent a lot of time analyzing the trial transcripts, seeing what the jury was and wasn't allowed to hear. What did you find most interesting about the trial?
The abundance of evidence against him. It was overwhelming. There was forensic evidence, endless forensic evidence, tying him to the gun, the casings, and that was enough to convict him, really. The confessions were almost secondary to, and when I say confessions, I'm also talking about his note to his parents and his diary. Were almost secondary to the hard forensic evidence and the DNA. So it impressed me that there was so much evidence against him. And this trial was never about guilt or innocence. It was about life or death.
We heard about Eric's father, abuse, stories about how he handled his son. Do you think that a lot of that was embellished by the defense, or do you think it was true?
No, I think it was true. I mean, Eric, they tried to bring out, was not a violent person, but he grew up in a violent home. And his father would get drunk, according to testimony, and beat the kids and his wife. So I think Eric probably experienced some of that, and that added to his ambivalence.
So All we really know about Eric Frein is the material that you've been able to read, transcripts from the trial, things that he had written. Nobody's interviewed Eric up to this point, correct? I don't know of anybody that sat down with him.
No, and he made a comment upon his capture that he wanted to sell his story. And of course you can't do that because of the Son of Sam law, but he wasn't aware of that. So he was still thinking, and rationally thinking, which is one of the reasons why they didn't try to introduce that or couldn't introduce his state of mind in the trial, because he was thinking about those kind of things.
Do you think we'll ever get an interview out of Eric where somebody will sit down with him and he'll really explain his side of everything?
I think his mentality of being anti-government is going to evolve in prison. I tried a few times reaching out to him, but when you're on death row, you get very little time to talk to the outside world. And my instinct is that he wanted to use that time to talk to his family. Okay. So he didn't want to waste it talking to a journalist. So he never responded to me.
Do you think he sits in his cell wondering if his ambush made a difference?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think he realizes the futility of his efforts.
You spent a lot of time looking through material, interviewing people for this book. You told me that you had pages and pages and pages of hard copy that you had to read from the trial, for example. How do you work through that to make a book?
You read as much as you can, and then you sit back and you say, okay, what's the story here? How do I tell this story? It's the same thing I did for a 500-word newspaper article. What's the story that I want to tell? And there was so much in this that it was a harder story to tell, for sure, a harder story to tell. But it was a very rich story and a tragic story as well.
You did a great job with it. And if people want to get a copy of Lying in Wait, Anatomy of a Domestic Terrorist, Howard, how do they do that?
Well, they can go on to Amazon and Google the title. It's also available at Barnes & Nobles and all popular booksellers in, if I may, in hardcover, softcover, audiobook, and Kindle. So there are lots of options for reading it.
All right. Hey, thanks for spending time with us.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
it. Thank you.